Well, good morning, everyone. Before I introduce our panelists, we're here talking about digital assets and policy, how we move from innovation to regulation. And it's just a quick reminder that the first patent for the seatbelt actually came out in 1885. The first time the three-pointed seatbelt that we use today was invented was actually in 1959. But regulations in terms of cars having to have that didn't come until the 1960s, and it wasn't until 1984 that New York was the first state to say, actually, everyone has to wear in the front of the car, drivers must wear a seatbelt. So innovation often comes before regulation. So I'd now like to call to the stage Erai Beckmann. Erai Beckmann.
Hello.
And
Hello.
Erai, you've had a fascinating career from publishing to pharmaceuticals to finance and now technology. Your career has taken you from Canada to Latin America and Asia. And so it's quite interesting that you are now building your company, ZDKL, and you'll correct that for me. And I'm reminded, actually, a few years ago, I read a book called The Bitcoin Billionaires. It was about the Winklevoss twins. And when they talk about Bitcoin and blockchain back then, it was quite a wild, wild west. And with your career, you have seen certain parallels because you've started in the CBD pharmaceuticals. You started in a sort of unregulated market while it became regulated. What are some of the parallels that you see between that experience you've had then and now with blockchain? What are some of the parallels you're seeing as we move from, totally unregulated market to something that's a lot more regulated? Could you share with us some of those experiences and the parallels you see?
Well, Hello. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you very much for the invite to be here, public. This is an amazing event, and the initiative and the intention and the results that we actually want to see implemented in the world are invaluable. I have two small daughters, so 7 and 9, and I am absolutely committed to ensuring that the planet that they have a chance to inherit is better than the way than the way that we found it when we were born. So the project that the doctor is mentioning, my wife and I, we were one of the very first ever CBD pharmaceutical companies. We're probably maybe the top 4 or 5 way back in 2014. My wife's Brazilian. We had been living in Brazil. And actually, just by happenstance, someone had physically called our office saying something about a mother was being arrested for international drug trafficking because she had somehow bought our CBD product and had it shipped to Brazil, unbeknownst to us. Long story short, what ended up taking place was we realized that the government was treating this like an illicit, illegal narcotic, which was something that was easily ingested by quite literally newborn infants, right? So long story short, over the course of 8 months, we started one of the world's first CBD pharmaceutical companies. We worked with governments. We figured out what was going on with regulation. We have to understand the current giants that are in the pond and how to play as best as possible with them. But ultimately, what does it all come down to? To get these solutions that we want, right, to all of our, human family. That project, very quickly, in about 8 months, we had helped lobby, wrote the laws and regulations, helped pass the laws. So legally, in January, I believe it was the 15th of 2015, we helped pass the law that made federally legal CBD as a medicine for the whole country, 200 million people in Brazil. That project, as a result, had a multi-billion-dollar pre-IPO valuation. Now, with blockchain right now, we're in the same situation predominantly throughout most of the world, is all of this intention, right, to create these amazing projects where we're hoping to bring these companies, or countries rather, online with these new digital asset policies now, thanks to Sergio and Public, these amazing initiatives. And each country is at a different place of their own regulation, right? So here in America, the biggest problem was over the past few years, the largest leaders in America, the SEC was going after them, right? So this obviously wasn't a stable ground. So the ZDKL project thank you very much for introducing it, stands for ZDKL. The name of the Layer 1 blockchain is called Peace Through Trade. It's actually a university initiative. So about 4 years ago, my wife and I started helping to invest in some Southeast Asian universities, very prominent universities. And we looked at how can we, working with the regulations, because we knew that this is what's going to come, right? So just in CBD, there was, let's say there's multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical groups. Well, because I was right there when the regulations came into place and I helped form those, well, my company that was brand new, all of a sudden was very, very valuable. But more importantly, we're able to get the solutions out to humanity that we need. So with this ZDKL ZDKL project, university-led, 2 universities, academics, and researchers for the past 4 years have been working within the laws and the regulations in Singapore. And my point in saying all of that is that the laws need to come online, right? And it's like the gentleman Juan Carlos said from Panama, brilliantly said, it's very boring, right? But the point is, without that foundation, we can't adopt these solutions, right? So we can't actually scale. And the whole point of the legalities is that the current providers of finance, the banking partners or whomever we need, the investors, the capital partners, they can't get involved and they can't play until the laws, the rules, and the regulations are in place. So, you know, the number one point of leverage I'm excited to be a part of working with public is to find out the countries that are the most interested. And similarly to what my wife and I had helped do in Brazil, where we helped them lay out the foundation, the groundwork so that they could turn the laws on, we can also help these nations that are interested in participating make sure they're following, you know, the best practices for them, for their people, that are also going to work regulatorily as the first step of the foundation to be able to turn on this technology. And I hope I explained that well enough, because I'm really trying to simplify something pretty complicated down.
I'm reminded, and in fact, you reminded me of the experience with Napster, you know, when it started in a, you know, very unregulated, at a time when it's unregulated. They opened up a market, but of course they're no longer around, and other players have now filled in. What would you see as the importance of, you know, sort of building that, based on that experience, importance of taking the time to build that regulatory framework, you know, if we are to start trading natural assets, for example, you know, on these frameworks, what would you see, you know, as why is that important, and how would you compare, and you know, where Singapore is to where the United States is right now on that regulatory?
Thank you for that, Doctor. Yeah, so regulation is just super boring. It just needs to be in place, or we can't start. We really can't start. And if we do start anything like you're witnessing, if it's of any consequence or whatever it is, it can get shut down in a heartbeat. And the reason for the regulation is simply so that we have some third-party accountability, right? We know for a certainty that we can have some auditing, perhaps. We can have some verification of the security of your assets or these countries' assets. And then the holy grail is the now insurance on these assets and this value, just like we're used to seeing at our bank, right? Like if our money or the asset, the value was in the bank and something happened to it, we wouldn't be too worried because we would believe that we would get that value back because of the system that exists. So that's just step one. The exciting part, though, about the digital blockchain Web3 evolution, this is exciting. So of those of you here today right now, which of you are here right now, if you wouldn't mind just helping me by raising your hands? Which of you are here right now in the audience? Just so I know. Okay, thank you. Sometimes it's good to confirm. So Web3, this is why Web3 is exciting. Web3 is exciting because for the first time with humanity, we want to support each other. We all want a better quality of life, but how do we trust that the system or the technology that we're going to adopt and that we're going to get on board with really has our best interests at heart? How do we know to trust that? Well, Web3, when it's truly proof of work, it's for humanity, it's permanent. The network is controlled by all of the holders. That now, for one of the first times in our history, this is like the fourth industrial age. This is a revolutionary time. If we can trust it take for granted it's been regulated and it's properly adhering to some laws so that we can on-ramp into it, and that's not going to be messed with in the future. And it's truly proof of work. Now, these technologies, these projects, these initiatives in the countries that we want to onboard and adopt for the first time in history, we can actually say, this truly is a permanent solution.
I'm very keen that when we meet this time next year, we're not sort of repeating the same things, but we perhaps have some examples that we're working towards. So before we get to that, however, could you tell us a little bit about your company, ZDKL, and just tell us a little bit about it, how it works, and then how we can sort of add nature tokens on top of that. So.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I don't want to sit up here and pitch my project by any means to anyone here, but it's a university project. It sincerely is for humanity. It's been named Peace Through Trade. We've done it with these very beautiful people in Southeast Asia. They're incredible human beings with the intention to bridge all of humanity together. The coolest part is now with this Web3, and I'm just going to repeat some of the same things if you guys see me at the next conference, simply, repeatedly, till we all get it. But with Web3, if it's done properly and legally, and we onboard to that solution, it's permanent. It can be permanent. And if it's proof of work, that's the acronym everyone wants to look at for any blockchain project. If you guys see PO any other letter than W, understand that behind the scenes, there's a centralized control mechanism. And whatever value, whatever assets, whatever money is put on that, it can be yoinked. So a true for humanity project is what? It's PO, what's the third letter? W, thank you. Thank you very much. So this project, ZDKL, it stands for ZDKL, the Archangel of Freedom, Justice, and Forgiveness. It's Abrahamic. It's on the Peace Through Trade Layer 1 Proof of Work blockchain. So with a technology like a proof of work blockchain, and I hope that we're not the only one ever, and we're not one of the first, and I really hope we're not going to be the last. But the point is now we could take any initiative, whether it's a carbon initiative or whether it's a tokenizing the asset value of the coral reef, as Sergio really kind of got my heart involved. The first story he ever told me was how we're going to tokenize the coral reefs in the Caribbean that were almost sold for a particular price, and I don't know what's confidential, and I won't share specifics, but the point is the value for humanity, as someone with 2 little daughters, is that's an invaluable asset. And we don't know what we're doing when we throw the wrench into the gears, but without going too off tangent, if we're going to take something that's actually in all of our best interest, that of course everyone should want to be doing, of course it would be insane to do otherwise, we have to currently play the current game that we have to with the current capital markets, we have to make it interesting and exciting, and we have to have liquidity, and we have to make sure that they can get in and out, and that it's interesting, and it checks all the boxes that they have to meet for their investors currently. But with proof of work, whatever work we do on that solution, whether it's ZDKL or one of the future, it's permanent. So everyone here has heard the acronym NFT. Do you remember when they were kind of like fatty, and a lot of people don't understand, what it stands for. So just really quickly, it's non-fungible. Non-fungible. That means it can't be messed with. It's theoretically permanent. Now we have quantum computing coming out, and there's all sorts of other things. But the point being is that if we want to take the results of, let's say we're tokenizing the coral reef project as an example, and we want to take photos, and we want to take video, and we want to take the treaties or the agreements or whatever are signed for the future of humanity, you guys realize that we are living at a time right now for the first time ever, when that historical record and documents and that work for humanity is put on to that blockchain, it's permanent. It cannot be edited. A different publisher can't come around and say, well, actually, I saw those events happening a little differently, and my family's last name is actually shining at the top of that. And then for 300 years, that's just what we learn. That's what we're taught. Never again. We are living in a time where truth will prevail permanently. So imagine the possibilities for the future of humanity. Not only can we have a thriving, sustaining Earth, we see with ZDKL right now that we want to get it out. We want to get it connected to as many humans as possible, because world peace through trade, through commerce, is actually possible. Without getting too deeply into that, Edmund Burke's writings, brilliant individual. Most people have heard his quote, all that is required for evil to exist is for good men and women to do nothing. A lot of people don't know about his economic writings, and he effectively said, strife and conflict comes from people needing a little bit more help financially in the resource department, right? I am certain that the lovely people of Somalia do not wish to be pirates, right? They would rather us figure out a way to help them exchange commercially, right? And have a thriving community. Everyone I've talked to, doesn't matter the culture or the language or their current socioeconomic situation, they want a better life for their kids and a better future for their kids, right? And their family, that's what they want. So this Web3, what it does is for the first time ever in our history, it allows us, once it's established, once it's there, and once you get on, now you can trust it because it allows for trust. It's instantaneous, it's verified, and it's forever. So it's, as you guys can see, it's something I'm pretty excited about.
That comes across very clearly. Please put your hands together for Erai Beckmann. What I will say before we leave, however, is let's ensure that we work together and, come up to us, let's make some connections so that by this time next year, when we come back to this stage, we can be talking about how we're using nature-based tokens, on platforms such as yours.
I agree, and we will have as an initiative we do intend on supporting, and we will help. And I look forward to sharing actual tangible results. So if you're aware of good projects and people that are willing to put it into place, this is a technology that should allow for that to thrive.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Bob.